Welcome back to the Republic of Rugby. Thank you for watching. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel because, as it turns out, the majority of people watching are not subscribed. And that makes me and Jordan very sad. So stop us from feeling sad and subscribe. And get stuck in on this one as well because I was fascinated by this topic when, Jordan, you brought it up a week or two ago when the Varsity Cup started again, the competition in South Africa. It's a really cool competition that people turn out for. It's televised, great style and standard of rugby, with some bonkers rule changes. So I've got to just, can you recap what the rule changes are, and then give us the lowdown on how it's been going?
Sure. So I think the biggest one this year has sort of been the new NFL rule. So instead of kicking a normal conversion, you have an opportunity or a choice to go back to your 22-meter line, tap the ball, and then you have 120 seconds to try and score another try worth 5 points. So that would be a 10-point try, realistically. But Varsity Cup also have a rule called the points of origin. So if you score a try from inside your own half, that try is then worth 7 points. So you could score a points of origin try, which will be 7 points as you dot it down like a penalty try. Then you could choose the tap rule, go and score another try, and suddenly you've scored 12 points in 2.5 minutes. So it's promoting a lot of running rugby. A couple of the other laws that I'll quickly touch on: free catch. So you know how you mark in your 22. Players can mark anywhere on the field. The red card has been reduced to 15 minutes, which they've enforced before, and the 50-22 variation. Indirect kick from your own half into touch equals a free kick 15 meters in. So instead of taking your line out that you would get with your 50-22, you take a quick tap. So promoting running rugby, basically.
So it sounds on the face of it like this is jouer. This is just all court. Let's go. Let's play. That sounds like in principle. Is that how it's actually manifested in reality?
Well, I've got some stats here for you. So in the first 2 game weeks, so there's 4 matches per game week. So there's been 8 games in the Varsity Cup and 8 games in the Varsity Shield. Varsity Cup, in the 8 games, a total of 665 points have been scored. That is an average of 83 points per game. In the Shield, they've scored a total of 513 points, which is 64 points per game.
Wow. I guess big question is how many of those points were from the NFL style extra attack?
I don't know the exact number, but I haven't seen too many. It seems to me like teams are opting to go for the conversion majority. Now they only get 2 options to tap the ball and try and score again per half. So I think there is a little bit of strategy in that. And again, once you score a try, you're normally pretty winded. So I think a lot of teams,
there's that, you're winded, but there's also, I imagine, if you score anywhere near the posts, you say, oh, we'll keep that in our back pocket and use it when it's a touchline conversion because we can just take the 2 guaranteed.
But the Varsity Cup product as a whole it's got off to a phenomenal start this year. We said in our last video, but COVID really affected the Varsity Cup in terms of attendance, viewership, all of the above. I think how COVID affected most sports. But this year is sort of their breakthrough year again. Their numbers are way up. You can watch any Varsity Shield, which is just under Varsity Cup, so sort of the second division, Varsity Shield or Varsity Cup game, and every single stadium is packed. Marty's played at Darnie Craven on Monday. I'm not sure how many people can get into the Darnie Craven, but it was packed. It looked like 20 to 30,000 people, just a maroon wall around the whole field. And this is on Monday nights. So they're definitely doing something right.
It's so cool. And yeah, the only disappointment is I can't come and watch it. And it's not televised in the UK either. So I'm fascinated. I'll go and check out some of the highlights. And in terms of, okay, so being devil's advocate for a second, is this style of running rugby potentially, could there be a downside where it doesn't prepare players for the realities of professional or even international rugby?
I think there's definitely that aspect, and that's sort of the more traditional way to look at it. which I don't disagree with, but I don't agree with at the same time. I think it's always cool to see a sport innovating and trying different things, because Varsity Cup is almost a feeder ground for what happens within South African rugby and therefore global rugby. I was speaking to someone at the Varsity Cup, and sometimes, not sorry, but the referees, I don't know, I can't remember what the organization is called, but they'll suggest rules that the Varsity Cup could implement to sort of test that for international rugby and professional rugby. So yes, I think maybe it's not preparing Springbok players, but then again, Tony Brown has implemented this new attacking system. The Springboks have scored more points last year than any other year. So I think the counter argument to that is it actually not preparing them for how Rassie and Tony Brown and the Springboks want to play sort of going forward?
Well, yeah, and also I guess the schools rugby's in a really great place. Provincial rugby's really good. So you've got the different shades and the different styles of play. It's not suddenly all running rugby, but I guess from the world's perspective, and having scratched the surface in South Africa a little bit, I definitely get this sense that they are currently, but even more so, the Boks can harness the power of all of the different types of rugby and skill set of all of the different communities and players that the country has. Then, that's the story of the Boks in the last 8 years, but it hasn't reached the optimum potential of what that can deliver, has it?
No, I don't think so. And I think it's super important for these players to develop that running game early as well. I think that's maybe one of the most difficult aspects of rugby to get right, is to have an extremely well-oiled machine that knows how to play running rugby. The All Blacks, New Zealand rugby have been doing it for years. I would argue that the Irish rugby is also sort of similar to that at times, when they're playing extremely well. But it is a nice thing to have, because South African rugby has always been, I don't know if you know what kopper stump is, but it's an Afrikaans term for head butting. We call it kopper stump. It's when at a rugby practice, the coach says we're playing kopper stump, you get into a square of 5 meters and it's full contact. So you're kind of learning to that physical South African sort of style of play. So I don't think that's taught as much in schools and sort of growing up. So I think Varsity Cup is playing an important role in training these younger guys this running style of play.
Yeah, and I can say as an Englishman, I look at the skill set of our top players and at the top level, and then I look at teams like France, and I look at the way that some South African players, and like you say, New Zealanders can play. Australians have always had amazing core skills, and England just doesn't match up. And I think we're seeing but more than that, it's not just they don't have the skills; they don't know when to do things. They're not practiced. They're too robotic, and they haven't got the freedom to just go and play off the cuff. And that's what I guess what the Varsity Cup is doing, isn't it? It's giving it's like a little sandpit for toddlers, but for rugby for young adults. Just go and have a play.
Yeah, and if you look at the history of it, Varsity Cup has produced 61 Springboks in its year. 61 Springboks have sort of come through Varsity Cup and gone on to play rugby for South Africa. We're talking your Ebenezabets, Edwil van der Merwes, Johan Goosen, like these not small guys. These are well-known names within South African rugby. And if you have to extrapolate sort of what that's going to look like in the next 10 years.
Kyle Steyn from Marties, that's where he was playing before he got his pro contract.
There you go. That's why Scotland are so good at the moment. But if you kind of look 10 years into the future, where's Springbok rugby going to be? Because the guys playing now, a good chance, some of them are going to sort of end up in a Springbok jersey. You look at your Zachary Porthens, who won the Varsity Cup last year with the Ike Tigers. 6 months later, made a Springbok debut. So it's definitely the breeding ground for Springboks, and that style of rugby is going to be very interesting to see how that transpires in 10 years' time.
Which of the laws, based on just what you've seen, and I know it's only a couple of weeks in, so you've not seen very much, so it's hard to judge, but if you can have a guess at which law change would be most likely to have the potential to go up to international level one day?
It's difficult. I would say I don't mind the 50-22 variation, because people, I mean, us as South Africans love to make it about ourselves, but that would take away a key part of the Springbok game, is that line-out time, maul time. We get a lot of reward for kicking a 50-22 as a South African team. So I could see that potentially happening. I could also see a mark anywhere on the field taking place. Lots of chatter about England kicking too much, international rugby is too much kicking. So that would change that. I don't know which one, I know you haven't watched it, but do you think any of those two would?
Yeah, so the one I thought that I could imagine people in World Rugby Towers rubbing their hands at and going and wanting to work and look good would be the mark from anywhere to discourage kicking. But maybe that would just see a return of the grubber kick as a skill. But I hope that doesn't happen, because actually, I think one of the takeaways for me from the weekend was England didn't kick enough and they looked terrible. And France have been one of the teams that kick the most, and it's so much fun to watch. So I think the whole notion that kicking is boring is rubbish. It's how you do it, when you do it, why you do it, and what you do with it. And the best teams use that really well. And it's the variety that you need. It's like, so the final thing from me asking these questions is, and this is not having seen a game, it's like, you know, when you, like, sugar tastes really nice. Sugar cakes are lovely. Chocolate's really good. Biscuits are great. I love a biscuit. But too much of it and suddenly you feel sick. Is scoring loads and loads of tries a bit like just having loads and loads of sugar?
Well, I think if you look at cricket, you've got the test match, the purest form of the game. You've got the 50-over game, and then you've got the T20 game. And I think Varsity Cup is the T20 of rugby. It's on for 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. It's this fast-paced, vibrant student sort of audience that wants to be there, wants to have a party, wants music to be blaring. So I definitely think there's a place for it. There's a place for test match rugby, test match cricket. There's a place for T20 cricket and Varsity Cup T20 rugby. Yeah. But I do agree with you. I think people would have said the same about sevens.
Well, that kind of is what I kind of think about sevens. Actually, I'm not. I think it's great for the athleticism, and when it really matters, like if it's the Olympic Games, or it's the World Series final, I'll get really into it. But just your average seven series event, I don't really watch, and I think that's probably the reason, because there isn't enough of the different shades of all of the things I love about rugby. There's some amazing speed and athleticism, but I like a scrum, I like a maul, and I like someone absolutely atomizing another player with a massive shot in defence. So I think it's a great way of putting it. It's like the T20, but I guess that's my point. I think what the Varsity Cup's doing is absolutely brilliant, and I wish I could watch it. But by the sounds of it, I love that they're experimenting with things and trying, but I don't particularly want to see what they're doing being done on the international stage.
Yeah, I think it's two separate products. And I mean, we've got the Shape of the Game conference coming up this week. So it's going to be interesting to see sort of what comes out of that. It would be quite funny if they implemented one of these rules we're talking about.
Imagine how much it would go off. It would be hilarious to watch the volcano of reaction that would kick off if that happened. So for just vibes alone, I'd love to see that. But as a rugby fan, I hope that isn't the case. But no, fair play, well done. I think what Varsity Cup are doing is brilliant, and the numbers speak for themselves, don't they? The people, the bums on seats, the people that are watching it, and there's probably some lessons to learn for other competitions there. So fair play, and thank you very much for the update, Jordan. You'll have to just keep watching it and telling me about it, because I can't see it in the UK. So if you could have a word with your friends at Varsity Cup and get them to do broker a little deal, hey, we could put it out on YouTube if they want to the UK. But until we sort that out, you just have to make do with videos from me and Jordan here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure you check back in for another video soon.